The square spine or 90-degree spine has kind of become an industry standard when it comes to knives for the outdoors. They are often marketed as turning your knife into a multi-tool. You have your sharp cutting edge, but then you also have the back or the spine of your knife that's been squared off, which gives you these pronounced corners that you can use as a scraping tool. My knives do not have a square spine. When I get a knife, I take a file and file away those harsh corners, which leaves me with a nice rounded spine on my knife. This goes against what most people believe or think or even teach about what knives for the outdoors should have. So why am I going against the grain and opting for a knife with a round spine instead of a square one? Let's begin by talking about the square spine and exploring the realm of its function. I would say 99% of the time someone is using a square spine on their knife. They're doing so to make fire. Whether it be scraping material to create a fine tinder or using the square spine to strike a ferro rod. The primary function of a square spine on your knife is related to fire making. Now, I've heard people argue all sorts of uses for their square spine, using it as a scraping tool to smooth and finish wood carving projects, or that it can be used to flesh and clean animal pelts. The list goes on, but I think what needs to be considered is how effective a square spine is at completing those tasks, and whether or not a different tool in your kit would be more effective, because in most cases, the cutting edge of your tool is going to outperform the square spine. Even when it comes to fire making, the cutting edge of your knife is going to be very effective at processing materials for tinder. You can use your cutting edge to scrape woods and barks, including resin-saturated pitchwood or fatwood, and doing so isn't going to damage your blade at all. And if you find doing so dulls or damages your blade, then you should probably look into getting a knife with harder steel, because processing these soft materials shouldn't be causing any damage to your blade. Now, striking a ferro rod, yes, a square spine can be very effective at striking a ferro rod. In my opinion, the ferro rod is a tool that you bring with you into the outdoors for the sole purpose of starting a fire. And by itself, it's rather useless. You need to have a tool to strike it with. So why not just carry a designated striker? That's what I do. I keep the ferro rod and striker tied together, so where one goes, the other follows, and if one gets lost, the other will be lost with it. I don't want to blatantly state that there's a right or wrong way of doing something or a right or wrong piece of gear to carry. I don't really believe in that. I think there's really no right or wrong way of doing something in the outdoors. There's just what works and what doesn't work for each individual. Now, for me, a square spine doesn't suit my needs. For me, a round spine is far superior. I use my knives for a wide variety of tasks in the outdoors: carving, crafting, processing and harvesting resources and materials, and a round spine allows me to use my knives to their full potential. You see, when you're working with your knife, holding and handling it different ways, pushing on the blade to work through material and perform precise cuts, you're going to notice that those harsh corners of the square spine begin to inflict a lot of discomfort. It's very easy to test. If you hold your knife and just push on the back of it, right away you're going to begin to feel some discomfort. And it's not uncommon to develop hot spots and blisters, which can have a very negative impact on your experience in the outdoors. Now, if you take your knife and you take a file and file off those harsh corners and round off the back of your spine, perhaps finish it off with some sandpaper, you're going to have a round spine that is far more comfortable to use. You can push on this all day long and you're not going to be tearing up your hands. It's going to be a much more enjoyable experience to work with your tool now. Personally, I don't need my knife spine to be a scraping tool, especially when it sacrifices the usability of my knife as a cutting tool. If you're someone that uses your knife a lot in the outdoors, around your camps, for carving, crafting, then a round spine might be beneficial for you, and you might find your knife a lot more comfortable to use and just an overall better experience using your knife. If, however, you primarily use your knife for fire starting and you use that square spine a lot, you're not really into carving or crafting, then the square spine is probably what's going to be best for you. Again, I don't believe that there's a right or wrong way of doing something in the outdoors. There's just what works and what doesn't work for each individual. And we're all different, so it makes sense that we're going to be doing things differently. And don't let someone tell you that you're wrong just because you're not doing it their way. Be wary of those people, and be especially wary of the people that tell you that you need to buy something in order to be doing it right. I see that a lot these days, the salesmen, I call them. People that sound like they're going to be offering you advice or knowledge, when really it's just a sales pitch in disguise to get you to buy a product that they are selling or promoting. Think for yourself. Don't adopt somebody else's opinions as your own. Question what you see, question what you hear, and try different ways of doing things. Just find what works best for you. When it comes to knives, a round spine is what works best for me. If you spend a lot of time with a knife in your hand, perhaps it'll work well for you too. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching. God bless and happy trails.